Rahubat. Greetings, family. Once again, we're here today to focus on another topic. What we want to talk about today is what is Nuwaupu, or what we call Nupu. What is a Nuwaupian? And are we a cult? Because we've been hearing a lot about that. They just did what was it, People's Magazine? It's calling Nuwaupians a cult, and
they see fit to throw that on TV as well.
So what was the article? Magazine article?
Yeah, it was an article.
And I get it. The Caucasian, we call it Mukasu, has had a history of calling black organizations a cult. The most prominent before us would be the Nation of Islam. We'll call it a cult. In fact, I'm gonna show you some. Look at the headline where it's calling the Nation of Islam a cult. So this is nothing new.
Yeah, we talked about it before. They even call our ancestors in our culture a cult whenever they refer to the temples. You see, like the cult of Isis and cult of Osiris.
Yeah, we'll get into all of that. And so I think the first thing to do is to explain what is Nuwaupu, or what we call Nupu. What is a Nuwaupian? And then we can kind of go into the whole cult thing, because I think that's where the confusion is. And so what I want to do is we put out so many books trying to explain this. We've talked about it. The master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z York, known to us as Nuwaupu Atun Huree, who has been teaching us for now going on 50 years, since the 60s. Officially started in 1967, teaching us about our ancient culture, which is Nuwaupu, or what we call Nupu. And a lot of people have a lot of questions about these teachings. And so first, what I want to do is go over what we teach and what we've been teaching throughout our doctrine, throughout all the books that the master teacher has written. And then we'll kind of go into an explanation in more detail to help individuals get a more clear comprehension of these terminologies, the origin of these terminologies, what these words mean, why we use these words. We've been using Nuwaupu for over 50 years now, since the 60s. And so I think it's the most appropriate name for black people all over the planet. And we'll explain why we say that. To call yourself a Nuwaupian. So the master teacher put out a book, and we'll show you on the screen. It was called What is Nuwaupu? And I'm going to read from this particular book and this was the revised edition.
Do we have a year on that?
The revised edition probably had to come out in the year 2000, 2001.
Okay.
So, and it has on page 9, it says, what is Nuwaupu? So let's read that, right? It says that Nuwaupu is the science of sound right reasoning, and its followers are the sons and daughters of sound right reasoning. Belief is ignorance. Belief is to ignore the facts intentionally or ignorantly. Also, Nuwaupu is right knowledge, right wisdom, and a right understanding. If one has to believe, it means he or she does not know. And if one does not know, that is ignorance. Hence, belief is ignorance, and religious beliefs without facts is ignorance. So, demand that anyone attempting to impose upon you their religious belief to produce the facts. Now that's very important. Demand anyone trying to impose on you their religious beliefs to produce the facts. Do not go by belief, because that's what Nuwaupu is about. Deal with actual facts only. So if you attempt to convert me to the Mohammedan faith, or Muslim faith. For I, for one, it says, I, for my own soul's sake, have to see, read, and touch the original Quran. A Mohammedan will say that they have the oldest Quran. However, oldest doesn't mean original. They destroy the originals. They don't have them. This would apply also to other religion and other scriptures. The most deceptive word in religion is the word believe or belief, because a person could believe anything, and this means that a person can believe and be 100% wrong. But knowledge is knowing. Knowledge is correct information. To know gives one confidence, but belief infers doubt. Knowledge can be checked out by one or more of these three tests, which is through experience, evidence, and reasonability. Knowledge is always logical and it reasons out. The first step in Nuwaupu is right knowledge, which will pass any one of the three tests that is practical for knowledge given. One cannot always use the experience test because experience test is not practical for all knowledge. The evidence and reason tests are those tests which are most often practical. Yet, Nuwaupu is the science of experience, evidence, and reason. Okay? Because 9 ether is the power of reason. 9 ether by nature is the male living being and female living being spirit forces of black people, Nubians or Nubians, and our black magic black power magic. There is an evil hypnotic spell called Aman, also called Leviathan, that was cast upon blacks everywhere. It is a spell of sleep of the conscious mind, also referred to as a state of amnesia. You forgot who you are, which are the real Tamarians, or which they say the real Egyptians. We forgot our cultural past. And that's what the spell has done to us. You see, Nuwaupian or Nubian is a new being from the Atumites or the Adamites. Now, if you read the Bible, Genesis chapter 2, verse 19, or what they call white magic, but the Atumite, which will be explained later on in this scroll, it says. Now, it says you were created to a new being, which is known as the Enoshites, which are your Bible's name, which means one who forgot, which is what we've done. We have forgotten who we are. We became mortals, Enoshites, as it says. So lastly, he says, the scientific name of 9 ether will be disclosed in the science Nuwaupu, when the minds of those people capable of entering the new sun cycle have been qualified, and the people are Nuwaupians, who are gods incarnate. Now, that's an important point because this book was written, like I said, in 2000, and now we're in 2018, and the scientific name of Nuwaupu has been disclosed when you read the Master's Secret, what was it, the Ultimate Reality?
Ultimate Reality.
And we'll put that up for you, and you'll see that the scientific name of Nuwaupu is NoopooH. Okay? And that's interesting because that goes into another lecture we did on who is Afro Unu, right? And the debate came up, is Afro Unu Mr. Eugene Brown, or is Afro Unu Dr. Malachi Z York? And I recommend anyone and everyone to take the time out to watch that video, so I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, repeatedly, because it's long and thorough.
Yeah. but that's just more data on that. But so I'm just trying to give a basis on what we teach, what we've taught, what Nuwaupu is. Now, a lot of Nuwaupians who've studied our culture, they already know these facts. But it's important, I think, to reiterate these facts and to detail them and to show people where they can get the information from in the particular books. So let me go on with this and trying to give more clarity what a Nuwaupian is and what is Nuwaupu, right? So, because we just said Nuwaupu is the science of the spirit forces of non-ether, okay? Excuse me. So we have another book that we put out, and this book came out. It's called, and we'll put it on the screen so you can see, The Right Knowledge Scroll. And this particular book will address some of those questions we just raised about non-ether, and more clarity about right knowledge, that is, or Nuwaupu. So if you go to page 20 in this particular book and you read here and it asks the question, how can right knowledge liberate you? The answer, right knowledge is controlled by the forces of nature residing on the plane of force. And the deity that rules the plane of force, which is called El Roi in the Bible, or what we call Ra or Re'e. So now, here we're saying that right knowledge exists on the plane of force. So that's another dimension. That's another dimension, the plane of force, because we are on what is known as the material plane, the physical plane, tangible things. The plane of force is the next dimensional realm up. The plane of force is that realm where your dream state.
Yeah, we talked about that sleeping. And
your dream state. That would be the plane of force. And this is what we meant by black people are under a hypnotic spell of the subconscious mind. The spell of sleep, Leviathan. What is sleep? Sleep, the human being, everyone goes to sleep pretty much on the planet, right?
Yep.
And when you go to sleep, you black out.
You lose
Your conscious mind blacks out. And that's what the spell does. When the spell is broken, you will not black out during sleep. You're supposed to, when your body, because the body does need rest, and we've talked about this before, you're supposed to maintain consciousness. That's the point in time where the Ka and the Ba, your spirit and your soul, comes up out of the body and you're able to exist consciously on the plane of force. We used to know how to do that. This is what we forgot. That's what made us mortals as Nuwaupian peoples. We forgot how to maintain our conscious awareness even though our body has to get sleep or go to sleep or rest.
I don't know if we want to reference anything for that, because that might be a new concept, a new idea to a lot of people listening. How would we? Well,
we covered that in the other videos of ours. I know that we talked about it in what is spirit and soul in relation to the human body.
Okay.
So I do recommend individuals to watch that. And please, let me just say this. All our videos, I repeat again, watch them more than once. Take your time, because it is a lot of concepts that, for a lot of individuals who are not Nuwaupians, are new. Even for Nuwaupians, I recommend watching them more than once. Especially if you're going to make comments and ask questions in reference to us, because I've noticed in other videos that we put out, they're making comments and they didn't really watch the video, or they watched the video but they didn't watch it intently. And so it's better at least to watch a video more than once, especially when you want to make a comment and for the purpose of clarity. And that's something the master teacher always recommended with our books. Read the books more than once. So I reiterate that. So again, the spirit forces of Nuwaupu is non-ether, right? The spirit forces of Nuwaupu is non-ether. And as I just read here about right knowledge, is that right knowledge is controlled by the forces of nature residing on a plane of force. So that's a deep concept. That's a very deep concept, but I'm going to move on, okay? It goes on to say, and page 39, the same book, says, by the help of the forces of nature called nine ether. So now, the forces of nature, which is what we call nine ether, the original creative forces of nature that grew everything we see in existence, was these primordial forces of nine ether. That's the key that we're getting to. And this is going to lead us into why we call ourselves Nuwaupians. Because when you begin to analyze what are these creative forces, what did our ancestors call it? And when you go back to ancient Tamare, or ancient, what we call Maghreb, what people call Egypt today, they teach or taught the ancient primordial forces that grew all things was called Nun and Nunet. Nun, the masculine energy, and Nunet, the feminine energy. The waters of Nu, they also say. The waters of Nu. And these are the creative forces.
You're saying of everything within the universe.
All existence.
All existence.
Comes out of the waters of Nu. All existence comes out of the waters of Nu. And this is the teachings of our ancestors. The ancient, we call the ancient Nuwaupians, which people call the ancient Egyptians. And we'll say the ancient Tamarians. That's another name. So it's important to have a basis of where these names are coming from, going back to the ancient Egypt, as well as going back to ancient Samaria, because the Sumerians taught that the Most High was called Anu, which so happened to also be an Egyptian name, right? Because it's one of the ancient Egyptian cities was called Anu. The Greeks called it Heliopolis, which means the city of the sun. And what is the sun? The sun is nothing but a celestial body, a creative energy, self-creating celestial body that comes from the waters of Nu, or what scientists today are calling dark energy, dark matter. Now they're still uncertain about this dark energy and dark matter and what is the materials and exactly what is this stuff, because again, these are knowledge, actual facts of existence that the Mukasu has been ignorant to. Something that our ancestors knew about and taught. We called it the waters of Nu. And we said Atum-Re, the sun, was birthed out of these waters. And so scientists today, they understand that what they call the visible universe are nothing but suns throughout the universe. This is what they can see. So the other part of the universe they can't see, they call it dark energy, right? And dark matter. That's what they can't see.
It says the dominant portions of the universe.
It is the dominant portions of the universe. That's exactly it. Right, dark matter. And so they're trying to figure out what is the sun, these suns in the universe, their relation to this dark energy and this dark matter. Our ancestors taught that the suns come from this dark energy that they called Nun and Nunet, or the waters of Nu. So this is something that our ancestors understood. And by way of the sun, which is what we call Re, others pronounce it as Ra, or some would say, no, we call it Re today. Some say Re, others say Ra. And we say, as Nuwaupians, we say Re. But the universe, when it first comes into formation, by way of the waters of Nu, comes the first sun, which is Atum-Re. And then from there you have the Natharu, which is the gods and goddesses of the universe. And that goes into a whole nother story, but I don't want to do that. But that's who we teach. The ancient Egyptians, us, the ancient Nuwaupians, teach that's where we come from. These forces, these primordial forces. Okay? So, again, I don't want to be boring, but this is important history for us to know about our origins. Now, going into another book that we put out, and this is a actual fact, number 6. And it's the actual fact that we'll put up called Nuwaupu. And it's going to reiterate some of the things I just read before, but I think it's important to go over this again. And this is in the actual fact. So I'm going to read from what this particular book says on page 1. And it says this. Nuwaupu is divided up into 3 degrees. Nuwaupu, and Asa Nuwaupu, and Naba Nuwaupu, called Nuwaupu. We only give its true meaning from mouth to ear. It's not for evil, disagreeable forces to speak its hidden meaning, for by that formula the heavens will be open, and many beings will come. It's also written as Nuwaupu, or Nuwaubu would it be. Yet here for Nuwaupians I will speak on it. It's pronounced as Nuwaupu or Nuwaupu. It stands for right knowledge, the right wisdom, and the right understanding. The key to transform information into affirmation. Nuwaupu is all comprehension, recognizing Paa Nabab, who we call the all, being finite and infinite. Nothing is outside of all. Where would you put it? For all is, was, and always will be existing. All is all and everything existing, living and dead, visible and invisible, male and female, good and evil, angelic beings, flesh and spirit. Nuwaupu is the science of sciences and the science in science. Nuwaupu predates dates and time. Nuwaupu is the science that always existed in and beyond space and time. Nuwaupu is the science of sound right reasoning, and its followers are the sons and daughters of sound right reasoning. Nuwaupu is the science of the original creative forces and the original forces of ether of the African people in general. Nuwaupu is that science in which and with which the universe was grown. Nuwaupu existed for a long time before religions were formed, with the 4 cycles each of 6,000 years of Fanum, the earth. And so that gives another, how can I say, we're shedding more light on what the word Nuwaupu is and what we taught it is, right? And going into what a Nuwaupian is and what we're about, we're going to look at another particular book. Now this is the Master Secrets, and this is number 19. This is called The Spiritual You After the Physical You Die. And if you go to that particular book and go to page 13, it says this, and I read. We as Nuwaupu of Nuwaupu do not believe in any spook gods of the people of Mesopotamia or Jerusalem or Arabia and their heaven and hell. We as Nuwaupu of Nuwaupu, as Mufta'u or animus, have our own link to our own Salafu, means ancestors, by our own DNA. What is wrong with our own race is over the past 6,000 years, Mu'adamu, dominion, we have been made to think so little of ourselves. We always look to give the credit for our accomplishments, achievements, or success to others or unseen gods taught to us by our slave master, the Yorapu, or the European, or the Arabu, the Arabs, always thinking a unconfirmed Muksas, Christian or Muslim God, if we win or get better health-wise, or survive an accident, find a job, become a star, or get a hit in the music or cinema or in sports, we always find a way not to recognize its realize it's because of your own hard work, skill, talent, trade, or being great at what you do. And now he's talking about how people when they win something, they like
say thank God. Thank God did this. Jesus did that.
Always thinking this unseen spirit force, right? This unseen, unprovable spirit force. As Nuwaupians, we do not do that. We acknowledge that which is real, that which is we deal with reality, not religious beliefs, as we said before. Okay. So it says here, never think if it is all powerful, then it caused the accident in the first place or did not prevent it. So when something bad happens, we don't accuse this unseen God, right? We usually accuse the devil. But anyway, let's keep going. Like scenarios, it talks about your brother or your lover, your friend or your son returns from war. You're happy and you say thank God. If not, sad, yet never blame God, I should say. So we thank God for all the good things. We blame the devil for all the bad things. That's kind of how it works. But yet the question comes up, who created the devil? So let's go on. Look at all the men and women that returned from war that God let happen, where they became blind or crippled or disabled. They became impaired or became insane. They became alcoholics or they committed suicide. And the question is, did God let this happen? What do? Pretend, he says, you pretend that it's the devil's fault, yet who made the devil is the question. So if you read the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, and you read the Quran, Quran chapter 15 verse 27, it says, this God or Allah created the devil, gave it or him their power. And so as Nuwaupians, this is not something that we subscribe to. Nuwaupians deal with actual facts and actual facts only. As we said, the forces of nature, these power forces of nature that rules and pervades all things.
You just picked up about 4 or 5 different books, Safat, and there was a lot of different examples, explanations. How would you sum all of that up? Or do we want to read more before we get to that point?
Well, no. I think is important because we put a lot of these explanations about Nuwaupu and Nuwaupians in a lot of our books. But the question is, in real time, what does that mean for a lot of people? Because a lot of individuals read these things, and I think a lot of people are not clear on it.
It could almost sound all over the place. Because in one aspect, we're talking about reasoning and our spiritual nature. Another book, we're talking about religion and how they don't deal with facts. And another book, we could be talking about, what you've read already. So how would we sum that up?
Let's just be clear. When we say Nuwaupu, we said, what does it mean? It means that it's one who deals with right knowledge. Nuwaupu is the spirit forces of non-ether. That's what Nuwaupu exactly is. It is the spirit forces of non-ether. Now, where does the spirit forces of non-ether reside? We just read in the right knowledge scroll, it resides on a plane of force. So, and that's a problem for Nuwaupians, those who call themselves Nuwaupians. Because Nuwaupians are supposed to make things happen in the positive for themselves, right? And a lot of negative things are taking place among a lot of Nuwaupians. And it's due to the reality that we've yet to break the spell. And what is the spell? The spell of Leviathan, the spell of sleep. So what I said, what is the spell of sleep? It's when we all do this. We all go to sleep and we lose conscious awareness, which means we're not tapped into the other realms, the other dimensions. Something every human being does on the planet Earth. They go to sleep and you dream. That dream realm is the plane of force. So that's something that we have to begin to become cognizant of, I should say. what exactly is these other dimensions, because we tend to ignore it. And as Nuwaupians, we're supposed to be completely aware of these things.
Unfair, but I did say earlier that I wanted to come back to the panel. So you guys are in that order when we restart. Do you see what I mean? But I'm going to go now to Kim. What are you interested in? What are you working on?
Well, I am the new kid on the block, so I have not been here as long as these folks, and I feel very fortunate to be part of this group. I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor in the Department of Psychiatry. And as part of my work, I see patients and I do research and I teach. And a lot of the patients I see that I'm doing psychotherapy on, I also started doing mindfulness-based therapies and recognizing the impact of the meditation and the mindfulness treatments that I was providing. And the positive impact on symptoms was wonderful. However, I kept hearing over and over again from my patients that they were experiencing other things. And so that's where I really began exploring and getting interested in what was actually happening. And I'll give you an example very quickly. I had a gentleman with very severe depression, an attorney, very bright, 52-year-old, had just been left by his wife, very bad alcoholic. He had tried so many times to stop drinking. He had tried so many times to stay on his treatment for depression, and he couldn't. And I worked with him to start practicing mindfulness meditation to help reduce the cravings for alcohol. It didn't work, but he kept trying, he kept meditating. And then one day he came to me and he said, "I'm not going to drink again." And I said, "Okay, sure, all right, that sounds good. Let's keep an eye on this." But I didn't believe him. And he has not had a drink to this day. I asked him what happened, and he had what we call a clairaudience experience while he was meditating. A voice of a woman came and said, beat him up. I mean, talk about a negative experience. This voice told him to quit it. What the hell was he doing? He was killing himself. And he said, "You know, it sounded like my mother, but I'm not sure if it was." But he said it resonated with him, and no one else heard it. It wasn't, you know, a real person. He wasn't delusional. But it worked. He had perceived that this came from somewhere, and it worked. And I saw this over and over again in my patients with personality disorders when they would meditate, when they would get in touch with this thing, change the state of consciousness. And what I began to realize is that more and more of them were reporting what many of you will know as siddhis. These are actually to be expected sort of experiences that people have when they're practicing some of these what are now modern traditions but come from ancient traditions where this was to be expected, that you would have extraordinary experiences, gifts, and powers. These are things like psychokinesis, where you might be able to influence the environment, physical environment, or what we might call psychic sort of abilities, where you might be able to predict something in the future or remember something that you couldn't possibly remember from the distant past. And so the research I am moving into now is really more methodically exploring this. And I'm building on research with my colleague, who John also knows, Cassie Veaton at the Noetic Sciences, and she's in California. They did a study that looked at just a survey of 1,100 people or so, and they were meditators who had done some significant meditating, and they asked them about these specific experiences. And it was absolutely astounding. They found over 50% endorsed experiencing some of these things, one or more.
I missed that. This is selfish. What did you say, 50% what?
50% reported experiencing some of these cities, some of these extraordinary experiences, things like precognition. I mean, I don't know about you, but that is mind-blowing to me. And so they followed up with some additional research looking at this. Most of the people, 60%, were significantly impacted by this in a positive way, which again is pretty profound. So they didn't say, well, it's no big deal. It was very significant to them psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. So we're building on that research now and looking at, can all the things we've talked about here, can we make this happen on purpose? And what will that look like? How many people will experience these things? And who experiences them? Are they certain kinds of personalities? Are they people that need special training? Do you need to be a monk? I hope not. And the idea is, can we access these out-of-body experiences, these phenomenal experiences, and learn from them what we see that these other people have learned on purpose? And what would that look like to tap into that human ability, that level of consciousness? If we all did that, wow, I think we might have some hope.
Very good. Very good.
So the question comes up, why are we not aware of these things? Why are we not aware of these other realms, these other planes?
Like I said, we black out, which just about everybody experiences on multiple levels, you know.
Paa Nabab YaaNanaN has been, in the actual facts and the readings that has been going on, he's been trying to drill these points in us. And it all has to do with us living European Western culture, even though we call ourselves Nuwaupians. Something we're supposed to be striving not to partake of, because their culture, it literally blinds us from the reality of existence.
And we're saying a multi-dimensional existence.
That's what a Nuwaupian is. A Nuwaupian is in tune with the other dimensional realms, and you're able to tap into these higher forces, these higher energies, and we're blocked off from that because of this culture that we live, right? And so,
could we go on a little detail? How does the culture block us from a multi-dimensional reality?
Well, we first have to comprehend. I think the problem is that we don't really comprehend what it means to be us, the human being. Okay, and that takes some comprehension and trying to comprehend the human body. What exactly are we, right?
Okay.
But let me go back into the words Nuwaupu, NoopooH, Nuwaupian. So when we say that, what we're saying is that we are the sons and daughters of this creative spiritual force called Noon in ancient Egypt. So by identifying with that, we're saying we come from that creative force. The first creative one of the waters of Nu was Atum-Re, the suns throughout the balanced universe. And then the suns created the solar systems, right?
Gotcha.
And then the suns impregnated planets within solar systems to germinate life. And so life is sprouting up. And we, who call ourselves Nuwaupians, the children of Nu, personified by way of the sun as energy. As energy. Our energy, what we call our spirit energy, our soul energy, which is why we say we are soul people. Soul is a Latin word for sun.
Like solar system.
Exactly. Sun people. This is what melanin is all about. Melanin is nothing but sun genes. We literally come directly from the sun. As energy, mind, creative energy beings, personifying growing bodies. Now, we did a lecture on that a while ago, which is the lecture on the origin of the black woman. And that kind of goes into it. But I'm just trying to give a condensed explanation of what we teach and why we teach it. And this is actual facts. Easy to prove. It's for anyone who's unclear on it, you're only unclear about it because it's new data, new information. And so you're going to be unclear. But I'm explaining why we call ourselves that. And the question is, why did the ancient Egyptians identify with these principles? Because they did. They did. They identified with their origins. They taught about their origins. And they was always trying to make contact with the Nuwaupu, higher dimensional beings. Right? Always trying to focus on making connection with higher dimensional beings. That was a part of the whole Egyptian culture. And so a Nuwaupian identifies with those things. A Nuwaupian identifies with our original creative force and what the original energies that we come from. And so that's why we say, as being the children of Noon. So when you look at the word Nu, Wa, and Bien. Now, when you break that word up, it's basically 3 syllables. And when you say Nuwaupian, you're also saying the word Nubian. It's the same word, right? And we read that already in the others, in the Bright Knowledge Scrolls. So Nuwaupian or Nubian, it's one and the same. The difference is the syllable. And we'll have that up for you so you guys can see the words, right? So you have the word Nu, which identifies the waters of Nu. And if you look at that word, or that syllable, and then you have Wa. What is Wa? Wa means it represents the wind, a movement. This energy, this moving energy. And then you have at the end of that, which is Pu. What is Pu? Pu represents or means all expanding. All expanding. This is where you get the word Pa'ut. So you have Nu, the creative force, Wa, that's moving, Pa'ut, Pu, all expanding, Nu, Wa, Pu. Or you can say Nu, Bien. Again, Nu, the creative force, Bien is one that comes from that creative force. That's all the name means. That's all it means. And the creative force is an intelligent spirit force that grew the universe. An intelligent spirit force that grew the universe.
As opposed to what's commonly taught in this school system, that everything happens by random chance.
Which is impossible. Because the question comes, can nothing create something? That's the question. That's the silly question that these silly mundane scientists are asking each other. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing. So I asked the question, can nothing create something?
When you say, can nothing create something, why is that the question? What do you mean by that?
Because of the simple reality, that's where they stand. What they teach is about the origin of the universe is the Big Bang. Mm-hmm. Right? But they can't explain what is the origin of the bang.
Oh, where it came from.
Exactly.
Just randomly, it was a bang and then stuff started popping out all over the place.
And so they're basically trying to tell you that nothing created something. And that's impossible.
Gotcha. If there was nothing there to crash in each other, you wouldn't hear or see or feel a bang.
It's impossible. Now, of course, you have the other scientist. What's that guy? Mikhail.
Kalku.
Yeah, put him up. You know, he came with the string theory. So because I think he realized that didn't make any sense, and so he's saying that the universes always existed as multiverses, and a universe is created by colliding universes or creating other universes. So he's on the right track. He's on the right track. And they call it string theory. So you're dealing with strings, right?
Yeah,
Theory, vibrating tones. Everything comes by way of the tones. So the Bible, what was that? John chapter 1 verse 1.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Word. The tones, the sacred tones. And so these are important principles in our ancient culture. So when we're saying we're Nuwaupians, we are identifying with that. We're identifying with these creative forces. Now, so we go into the whole thing about the cult, because they call us a cult for identifying with our ancient culture. And there's nothing wrong with that. See, and here's the problem, and something we was talking about just earlier about this whole cult thing. As you can see, we'll put up the actual facts about, just look it up yourself. When you look up cult, ancient Egyptians set up cults.
From ancient times to the Roman Empire, the Sect of Osiris, the god of the afterlife, dominated Egyptian religious thinking. In many ways, Osiris was a cultic improvement, transforming moral behavior and expanding religious experience.
A Moment in Time with Dan Roberts.
Osiris is the Greek word for the Egyptian god Wazir. He may have been an Egyptian ruler in the Old Kingdom, which is measured from about 2700 BCE to 2200 BCE. The cultic lore described his transformation into a god after his brother, Set, murdered him. Isis, the sister wife of Osiris, tried to hide the body so that Set could not find it and mutilate it. Set found it anyway and hacked it to pieces, throwing the severed remains into the Nile. Isis recovered the various parts of Osiris' body and, with the help of Osiris' other sister, Nephthys, and other gods, tried to sew it back together. This revivification failed, and Osiris was banished to the underworld, became the god of the afterlife, and the Osiris cult was born. Prior to this time, only the wealthy and high-born had access to the afterlife by means of devotion to the sun god Ra. Osiris offered burial and passage to all, wealthy and poor. Thus his cult grew in popularity and began to transform Egyptian cultic life. The leaders of this cult, speaking for Osiris, prescribed a strict moral code which offered to the obedient the promise of eternal life. Osiris was the gatekeeper, and to meet him, the penitent would have to be mummified. His or her body had to be placed in a tomb with their names inscribed on it, and with various burial equipment and materials, which included food and drink for the journey into death. After these preparations, the deceased would proceed to the Hall of Judgment, where under Osiris's supervision, a panel of judges would evaluate the person's life, and his or her heart, preserved outside the mummy, would be weighed. If it were the same weight as an ostrich feather, then the deceased would be admitted to perpetual happiness. At the University of Richmond, I'm Dan Roberts.
And so what are cults? Well, look up the word occult. And we have that word so you guys can see that. What it means is what? Hidden. All it is those individuals who have a cultural way of life that they choose not to share it with the general public.
Naturally, the general public or foreigners would be upset that it's not being shared. Maybe that's why they turn it to a derogatory word now.
Probably that's part of, first of all, when the Caucasian calls someone a cult, they try to identify you with Jim Jones, suicide cult. They're trying to identify you with Heaven's Gate, suicide cult. They're trying to identify you with David Koresh, another suicide cult, I guess. And what did all three of those have in common?
They're all Caucasian. Exactly.
Had nothing to do with black African people. So. We do not have no history of being no suicide cult organization ever. I never heard of a black organization suicidal and anything like that. So that's one. Two, then you have, what's that guy? Chuck, who likes to sample what the master teacher said. He created a cult. Yeah. Right? Now play that sample.
Where was I to find a place on earth or a culture that you can hide off into the corner and groom a certain amount of people to breed kids that, as the scripture says about Noah, would be perfect in their generation, that would not be touched by the what? By the harlot. Where could you do that at? So I looked and I said, the only religion that has so many dumb restrictions on it, so many unresearched facts, that were made to look like facts because nobody's researching them, is Islam. But you have to grab a specific, you have to be particular about how you use it. So I said, how do I create a cult that would isolate itself from everybody? The Sunnis would leave us alone, the Nation of Islam would leave us alone, the Christians would leave us alone, and the Israelites and Hebrews would leave us alone. I said, well, the first thing is the symbol should be different. So you make a 6-pointed star and a crescent and all. That'll do it. Call them the Nubian Islamic Hebrews. That'll do it. Now to teach the word in Nubian. How to get the word Nubian born in America. Now I gave birth to the word Nubian in America. Now there's a million groups, singing groups, and companies using it. How to get this known, to get their attention on this, to get them off this and this.
Now after you guys hear that sample, you know the key words you have to listen to when he said he created a cult and why he created it?
What's that?
He said he wanted people to leave us alone. He wanted to be hidden. He wanted to be segmented off. He did not want us to be identified with no one else, because when we were teaching that we were Ansars, Muslims at that time, right? Our branch of Islam had nothing to do with the Sunni Muslims that was running around New York City or throughout the world. We did not want any association with them at all. We were teaching a branch of Islam that was nothing but Nuwaupu at that time.
We said that was shown through the cult book, right?
No. Okay. All you gotta do, put this book up, Nuwaupu and Amanubi with an up top. Go to page 6. I'll read it. It makes it very clear here that on page 6 it says, we go down paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to the 4th paragraph on page 6. It says, things will begin at this renewal point in our history for the pristine purity of al-Islam called Nuwaupu. The sacred 3 letters, Nun, Wa, Be, giving us the word Nuwaupu. So again, I repeat, I read it again. Things will begin at this renewal point in our history for the pristine purity of al-Islam called Nuwaupu. The sacred 3 letters, Nun, Wa, and Be, giving us the word Nuwaupu. So, Nuwaupu is Islam. It's
in
one
its
and the same.
pristine purity.
In its pristine purity. That is what Islam is. That's not what those Sunni Muslims and them guys, that's not what they're about. They have nothing to do with true Islam. Because what is Islam? All Islam meant was the peaceful way of life. It's the children, the sons and daughters of absolute peace and tranquility. Which goes back to who are the true Muslims by nature, which is what we taught. We taught we were Muslims by nature. The true peaceful ones by nature, because who do we come from? We come from the Fahids, the little ones, right? What people call derogatorily, the pygmies. That's who we as African people all descended from, is the Fahids. Now the Fahids are peaceful by nature.
Peaceful to a fault to some people's
peaceful
views.
By nature. They are a harmonious, peaceful people, and all African peoples around on the planet come from them. And in ancient Kemet, what do we teach? We teach that Fa created the universe coming out of the waters of Nu. Who is Fa? Fa was the Fahids. Fa is of the Fahid. He's one of the little ones. And that was something that the ancient Egyptians identified with. They identified with the deity Fa. Okay? And so that's how you make the connection. That's how you make the connection. That we were peaceful by nature. And this is something we taught as Ansars religiously. We taught that all Muslim men was one of peace. That Islam was the peaceful way of life. A natural way of life. To be in harmony with natural nature. And that's what Nuwaupu means. To be at harmony and one with natural nature.
Once again, to reinforce the many things that we've heard about the Muslims, precisely when the Muslim started in America, who started the Muslim movement in America, and how long ago has it been?
We started in 1931. Actually, we are not the organizers of Islam. It was God himself in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praises is due, of whom the Bible and Holy Quran predicted. Master Farad Muhammad taught me Islam, and that was not with the word joining that was used. After he taught me who we were, it was not the question of joining, but accepting myself and what I had lost of myself by being kidnapped by the white people and brought to this part of the earth.
What you're saying is that Islam is basically the true religion for black people.
It is the very nature of them. It's not a religion. Islam, we refer to it as a religion. And that's the Holy Quran. I give to you, God says there, a religion. I have completed my favor upon you and choose for you Islam as a religion. Not that it's a religion. It's the nature of us.
Well, then also that leads me to the question then that do you feel that the relationship between the African and Africa, the blacks in Haiti and Jamaica and America, this would be one and the same? They're all brothers, aren't they?
Every black man under the sun is brothers. I don't care whether he live in America or live in Asia or Africa or in the islands of the Pacific or the Gulf.
Mr. Muhammad.
Actually, what you did was you pulled out part of the answer. The question is, who wrote the Holy Quran or Bible and tell us when it expires? Holy Quran was by the original man, was Allah, supreme being, black men of Asia. Holy Quran expires every 25,000 years, 9,080 days from this date written. The Nation of Islam does everything all wise, right, and exact. Then it goes on to compare 24,896,000 miles to the circumference of the planet Earth, and says that we're given one land which is 1 mile per year. You understand what I'm saying? So what they was trying to say that every time that the Holy Quran covers the whole world, cycles the whole planet, then it's time for its renewal. Alright? When Islam left the East and circled the whole world, the last place it arrived was here in the West, in North America. You see, that's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told them to look for somebody bearing a book with the Lamb on it. A man is going to come and give them a better explanation of the Holy Quran. Because at the point of our coming into existence, that is the time for the Quran and the history of Islam to renew itself. The word renew is to reform, or to be a reformer, or a mujaddid. He was telling them the next time the Holy Quran is reformed, look for a man and you see him and he'll be bearing the book, the Lamb. And he'll be the first black man to translate the Holy Quran and make it understandable to you. And that's our job. We gave birth to the Holy Quran. It cycled the whole world, and the last place it came was to America, to you. You see? And I'm that reformer sent with that ability, with the Book of Lamb, to translate the Quran and give you a renewed understanding of Islam. Takes you back through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and back before that, all the way back to Adam and to the end of the world. And that's what Honorable Elijah Muhammad told people to look for. The person who would have that ability, that would be able to cycle the whole world. And them 24,896,000 miles, that Quran traveled to India, it traveled to China, it went to Alaska, it's in Russia. The last place people got the Holy Quran was here in the wilderness of North America. And he didn't try to teach the Quran because he knew he couldn't. He told you someone after him was going to come with that. You see, there's a difference between teaching the Quran and teaching the Quran. When you teach it in all English, it's Quran. When you teach it from the Arabic, it's Quran. And all these teachers in the world, here in the Western world, are not teaching y'all the Holy Quran. They're teaching y'all the book, the Quran. Okay? That's what he meant by the 25,000 years. Holy Quran says who wrote the Holy Quran, a Bible. And he referred to it as a Bible, meaning a little book, a scripture, biblical. Who wrote the Holy Quran, a Bible, and tell us when it is expired, meaning the Nation of Islam. The Holy Quran expires every 25,000 years, 9,080 days from this date written. The Nation of Islam, when that happens, the Nation of Islam then will be doing things all wise, right, and exact. Because during the period of time of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they wasn't doing everything all wise, right, and exact. Because they wasn't dressing the way he put them on the front of the newspaper. I think the brother should have the newspapers there now. And he'll show you the symbol of them. They wasn't dressing the way, but he showed you this man, and he said, there's a picture of one of them, and he shows a picture of a man standing on a jalabiyah, and says, all eyes shall behold him. Alright? But that quote that he refers to, and he says, all eyes shall behold him, is in the Bible, and the next step is the Son of Man. The one who comes out of the east to the west. And you see how he got him dressed there? He has him dressed like that brother standing up in front of you is dressing. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, throughout his papers, was telling people to get ready. He showed them a link on the front of the cover where they show us shaking hands with them. They're showing you the link between them coming from them over to us. There's another article in the paper where they show you actually his followers leaving him and walking over a bridge where they're meeting people in white turbans. There's a little small picture on another paper you have over there. So all of this was Honorable Elijah Muhammad telling those people where to go and who to go to and what to look for and what knowledge, wisdom, and understanding he would have. Because they were not doing things all wise, right, and exact. Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made the statement, can a Muslim be fooled? What's the answer?
No.
No, not nowadays.
Not nowadays.
You left part of it out again. You gotta stop doing that. So no, not nowadays. But what happened is, when Warren D came to the throne, didn't he fool everybody? Huh? He let the devil in the Nation of Islam, didn't he?
True.
And that's not the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because what did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad say about the reformation of the devil? Can the devil be reformed?
No.
No, they tried. And they found out it could not be done. You understand what I'm trying to say? So they were not all wise, right, and exact. However, when you walk up on an Ansar who is following these books to the letter, who are following the doctrine that's being passed to him, you can't find fault in his doctrine. Out of the two-edged tongue that comes out of his mouth, you can't stop him. Everybody that comes against an Ansar, whether he's a beginner like you are or been here years, you got so many answers, and you can always rest assured, you say, if I don't have the answer, I'll be back with it, because I know who got it. There's a guy who got a book with a lamb on it, and he got all the light that we need in that book. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was telling about for the 25,000 years and the renewal of the Holy Quran. The renewal of the Holy Quran meant the real, proper translation, a revised, a renew. The word renew in Arabic is mujaddid, the reformer. Okay?
So, Africa. You are from 3 major tribes there, sitting in that room.
You are from the tribe of Sharia, the tribe of Ja'liya, and the tribe of Dongolawe. A combination of these tribes produced your many features, your many skin tones, and your many hues of color, as well as hair texture, from extremely kinky and curly to wavy and almost straight. All of those are your characteristics as the real and true Arab. You are the descendants from Israel and descendants from Ismail. You are the descendants of Ibrahim, and your true way of life is Al-Islam. You are the peacemakers that Jesus, the Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, spoke about when he said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of Allah.
So when you looked at, we just put out another book, Master Secret, and this is Master Secret number 16, where he talks about, the master talks about one of the meanings of the name Nuwaupu is the ones who replace, the replacement ones, which was the Sabbaid, in ancient Saba. When you look up the word Nuwaupu in ancient Saba, it meant to replace, or Nuwaup means to replace. And that is to say that we are the ones who are replacing those who are ignorant with those who are now the ones with right knowledge. That's what the Nuwaupian stands for today. One who is replacing the ignorance that's ruling our people today with knowledge, dealing with right, correct thinking, right knowledge, as we say. So it's a lot.
I was gonna ask you have any final thoughts or summing it up messages, as far as if someone were to ask again, what does all of this mean? All of these books, everything about Nuwaupu, sound right reasoning, think right thinking, 9 ether spirits.
It's a lot. It's hard to, how can I say, try to give a thorough comprehension in one setting, in 1 hour, which is the length of this lecture. Yeah. Because there's so much to comprehend when you're dealing with the word Nuwaupu and Nuwaupian. What I tried to do was explain why we even use the word, going back to ancient Kemet, going back to the reality that our ancestors in ancient Tamaray, called Kemet, said that we came from the waters of Nun, right? The waters of Nu, and the sun, Atumre, came out of these waters, the sons of the universe. And so we are saying we identify with that. Right?
That's our origin.
That is our origin. So if we come from Nu, then we must be new beings, the beings from Nu. That's all we're saying. That's all it means. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Of course, I went into a more complex explanation, but that's all it means. Now, these waters of Nu are the spirit creative forces that we call non-ether. And non-ether is the most potent spirit force in all of existence. And black people, right, are the personification in the flesh of these spirit forces. That's all we're saying. And that's what we are. So we come from the spirit force, and we call it spirit force Noon, or Nuwaupu, or Nupu. And we say we're the children of that spirit force that makes us Nubian or Nuwaupian. That's all it means. That's all it's saying. That's all we're saying. That's all it means. And we trace this back to our ancient ancestors. That's all we're doing. And that's all we've been teaching. We forgot. That's what we call the spell. We forgot these facts. We forgot this culture. We forgot this reality. And we're going to do another lecture on, well, what exactly is the culture of Nuwaupu? What is Nuwaupu about versus what we're living now, Western culture? So, for those who have any questions or concerns, I say don't hesitate to make your comment, to contact us. Support what we do, as we always say. Thumbs up for the video. Spread the word. become members of NoopooCC.com. I recommend, again, watching our videos more than once. I highly recommend that. Watching our videos more than once. And blessing to all. Peace.
Qui s'enfuit déjà.